Hello there, my name is Orga Plays and today we'll be discussing about 11 US presidents. But why? Because this video is going to get split into 4 parts. So, yeah, let's begin. The first president, by the way. Founding father and general of American Revolutionary War, George Washington became president in 1789. And he was the first born in the 18th century and died. He was also the first president to die, just a few years after he took office. There also has been stories of him having wooden teeth, but those are just made of walrus tusks and hippopotamus ivory. And he also chopped down a cherry tree, but he got in trouble for doing this, I think. See in this portrait right here. And yes, there is a tomb of him, and it also inspires a video which is a video discussing Washington's tomb. Anyway, moving on to the next president, John Adams. Well, there's nothing much I know about John Adams, but only few things I know that he was the first president in the White House, and he also signed the Declaration of Independence. But the author is just Thomas Jefferson and also Benjamin Franklin. They're the only authors of this thing I don't know about. Thomas Jefferson, the third U.S. president. And now I know I recognize him by John Adams. In fact, we did before him. He wrote the Declaration of Independence, but there's other things. 2 years into his term, the Napoleonic Wars occurred in Europe, and he stayed out of it. Not until James Madison became the president, and the War of 1812 began, which is where he goes to war with the British, who are actually getting I don't know. Another thing about Thomas Jefferson is that in his presidency, 3 years into his term, the Louisiana Purchase sought in the Louisiana Territory, which is a French area, given out to the country. Oh, that's a long one to mention about you, Jefferson, but you're also depicted on Mount Rushmore as well. So, goodbye. Next we have James Madison, which, as a fact, he is one of the shortest presidents in U.S. history, because he was the shortest one, and Abraham Lincoln is the tallest. Abraham Lincoln would be mentioned in part 2, by the way. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. So, during his term, the War of 1812 broke out, and when it ended, he resigned and gave the office of oath to his vice president, James Monroe. Well, typically I'm voice recording, but when I do voice recordings, I initially split them in 2 to make another one. But this is my first time doing another thing talking about in it. So James Monroe, which is another James, he bought Florida. And he also had the Monroe Doctrine, which prevent from European colonization into North and South America. Not until the British decide to get, is it called Guyana? I don't know what it's called. But James Monroe was, in fact, none of the least, since, anyway, moving on to the next president. Oh yeah, before we move on, I have one more fact about James Monroe. You may recognize him holding the American flag when he was at war with Britain with Washington, which is the American Revolutionary War. And in the Battle of Trenton, he was mortally wounded during the battle. So you may recognize him holding the American flag. That's what I looked up after doing this voice recording. Next we have John Quincy Adams. Yes, let me tell you something called like father and son. So basically, he is the son of second President John Adams, which we mentioned earlier. And, yeah, in 1824, there was an election of him between Andrew Jackson. But Andrew Jackson got the most votes, but none of them gave him a majority. So in the White House, they picked John Quincy Adams. I only is the one that knows about those facts, because yeah, why not? Andrew Jackson, the 7th U.S. president, and now you may know that we mentioned about him earlier in James Madison, because he was standing in the Battle of New Orleans. And what else? He got shot, there was a bullet inside him, and it remained inside of him for the rest of his life. Also, wanted a gun because he was attempted assassination. Yes, this occurred in his presidency. A house patron named Richard Lawrence attempted to shoot him by pulling the gun on him, but the first shot misfired. It enraged Jackson closed on his attacker, beating the heck out of him quickly. Wow, that escalated quickly. And Lawrence was about to put another gun and fire it, but it also misfired. Whew, okay. So you may know that the gun did misfire because the gun wasn't working. Oh yeah, he also likes to duel. Martin Van Buren. Well, considered one to be the worst president of all time. But a fun fact about him is he was the first president born in America. A first president born in America. Yes. He was born in December 5th, 1782, I think it was. And soon later there will be many other presidents born in America, because the rule is you must be born in America in order to become the president. That's the only fact I know about him, and he's the first president to know, since I only know about George Washington and Andrew Jackson. William Henry Harrison.
I died in 30 days!
I know I had to include that joke, because William Henry Harrison did die in 30 days. He suffered from pneumonia from Tippecanoe curse, but that was a fake curse. The real thing is that he was giving a 2-hour speech, and he died from cold on April 4th, 1841. His vice president will have to take office. John Tyler. We have John Tyler, the 10th president. And fun fact, as of recording this video, I am 10 years old. And he was the first vice president to be president after a real president's death. So, what's interesting about him? Because he had a party, but all 4 of them but 1 resigned. And that is no good, because he cheated a lot. And plus, by the way, he has some grandsons living today, and there's some of John Tyler's grandsons. 2 of them are still living, while some are dead, and maybe some of them will die out same day. We don't know what happens next. Finally, we have James K. Polk, the 11th president. And what is interesting about him is that during his presidency, he waged war in Mexico, led to Mexican-American War, in 1846, I think it was, that it ended. He promised to serve 1 term, which he did, and he died a few days after, which is no good, considering James K. Polk became president to go to war with Mexico, which after doing that, he dies immediately. So in that same year, Zachary Taylor will take his dog, and then part 2 will begin just 11 days later.